May our fraternal creed imbue.
Okay. Good evening, brothers and guests. My name is Ben Butel, and I'm proud to serve as the chairman of the Sigma Nu Educational Foundation. Sigma Nu's foundation exists for the purpose of supporting the educational and developmental programs of our fraternity. The foundation is proud to sponsor tonight's program in celebration of a most significant educational milestone. Tonight, we celebrate the thousands of brothers who have worked hard to earn their college diplomas in the midst of exceptional challenges. We are proud of all of you and commend you on a job well done. Now, the 66th Regent of Sigma Nu Fraternity, Brother John Hearn, will introduce our very special guest speaker.
Thank you, Ben, and greetings, brothers. I'm honored to introduce tonight one of Sigma Nu's most distinguished alumni, Brother Kurt Menefee. Brother Menefee graduated from Coe College with a bachelor's degree in journalism. It was also at Coe College that Kurt became a Sigma Nu brother, our Sigma Nu brother, when he was initiated by our Beta Epsilon chapter in 1985. He currently serves on Coe College's Board of Trustees. And as many of you already know, Kurt is a broadcasting veteran and certainly a pillar of his profession. He currently hosts Fox NFL Sunday, America's most watched pregame show, as well as the OT wrap-up show, also on Fox, and last year's #4 rated property in all of primetime. Kurt is also the host of A&E's newest series, America's Top Dog, which premiered in January 2020 as A&E's highest viewed premiere in 4 years. Off the screen, Kurt has compiled quite the collection of passport stamps, having visited nearly 90 countries and all 7 continents. Kurt, you may be the first person I've ever met that has done that. In 2016, Kurt authored the book, Losing Isn't Everything, The Untold Stories and Hidden Lessons Behind the Toughest Losses in Sports History. In 2016, in recognition of the credit Kurt has brought to our nation, to his profession, to himself and his family, and certainly to our fraternity, Brother Menefee was inducted into Sigma Nu's Hall of Fame, joining brothers such as Archie and Eli Manning, Bob Barker, and fellow sports broadcasters Bob Wolf, Joe Buck, and Al Michaels.
With America's Top Dog, it's the new Canine Obstacle Course series from A&E, where police and civilian teams go snout to snout for the title of Top Dog. And we are joined by the series host, Kurt Menefee, and 2 of the teams competing this season. Welcome, everyone.
Well, glad to be here. Time for my best moment of the day. Football is family. We like to say that. Probably no more so than on Thanksgiving Day. We are here with the crowd. We see all these different people. We've got moments like this. It's certainly not always the game on the field that matters so much. And this is a perfect reminder. Because I think there's life lessons for all of us, because every day is not going to go perfect for you. We're all going to have things that we have to try and overcome in life. Ronnie Lott meant what he said when he used those words. And as actor Amari Hardwick explains, Lott legendarily showed more toughness in one finger than most of us can ever imagine they were going to do. But his big thing was he and the team examined right away why they lost that game and took responsibility for it. And that's the only way you have to move forward. Well, Bryant was heavily involved in the communities he called home, as we all should be. That spirit was evident during this 100th NFL season, the spirit of giving. The league began a campaign called Huddle for 100, meant to inspire ordinary folks to donate at least 100 minutes of their time to a worthy cause. The initial goal was to reach 1 million minutes. Right now, it's at more than 300 million minutes, and the commitment hasn't stopped.
Well, you know, first of all, I'm a dog lover. Have been my whole life. We have 2 rescue dogs at home, my wife and I. And it was a matter of getting an opportunity to really show people what dogs are.
Well, a couple actually got married on the field. The first date was at a Bills game back in 2008, and apparently it went pretty well. Frank is an awesome running back, for sure, a legend in my book. Soldiers and military people fighting through PTSD, called Unbroken, that you're releasing right now. These cadets go by plebes, ducks, cows, and firsties, all while following the motto of duty, honor, and country. My favorite moments usually come from the meaningful parts of the games themselves, whether that's a pregame toss between J.J. Watt and a young fan, or a player scoring a touchdown after overcoming adversity. And this, everyone, is why sports continue to be awesome.
please welcome our brother, Kurt Menefee. Thanks for being with us, Kurt.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I tell you, my ego is not going to get stroked anymore than it was probably over the last 5 minutes or so with you mentioning my resume with the video. I appreciate it. It's heartwarming and scary and frightening at the same time. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And just so you know, I'm here in Southern California, and about 15 minutes before, I decided to go and change shirts. So I put this shirt on specifically because it's our colors here in the black, gold, and white, so that maybe we feel a little bit closer together here as we do this via long distance. Let me hit my little cheat sheet here and just get going. But I do want to thank you, Regent Hearns, Chairman Beutel, for putting this all together, all the Sigma Nu staff that made and are still right now behind the scenes making this happen from a technical and logistical standpoint. And thank you to all of you in front of your computer screens, laptops, phones, for taking time out to be a part of this on this evening, and for letting me share in what for you is definitely a celebration of your graduation. So thank you very much. It's amazing. A year ago, doing this online probably would have seemed awkward. Now it's just, you kind of get used to it, right? But hopefully we all get to have some fun here as we go through this evening before this night is over. I want you to have a good time, because I definitely want to hear from you, because this celebration really is about you. You know, words can't describe what we've all been through this last year with this pandemic and the division throughout our country. I don't need to tell you or remind you about it, because we've all lived through it. But man, how great is it to say that sentence using the past tense? We all lived through it. Is it over? No, but it certainly feels like we're starting to put some distance between March of 2020 and today, doesn't it? We haven't crossed the goal line just yet and don't want to raise the ball in the air at the 5-yard line, only to drop it at the 2. We all still have work to do to not only get back to where we were before the madness began, but to get back and be better than we were back then. Not just with each other, but also with ourselves. You know, the other day I was wondering just what I could say to you guys, graduates of the class of 2020 and 2021. For some reason, we tend to mark graduations and commencements as these milestone moments, which they are, and they should be celebrated. But we all envision that we're going to hear some magical words that will act as a key to unlocking the mysteries of the real world that we're leaving school and heading into. That the angels will sing, ah, and the skies will open up, rainbows will come tumbling down, and we'll suddenly get the wisdom of the ages brought to us so that we can then say, aha, now I get it. Well, I'm going to disappoint you fellas and tell you that I don't have any magical words, and I'm certainly no angel. The facts are, you already have all the words you need. They're in your heart, they're in your soul, they're in every fiber of your being. You are a man of Sigma Nu. What does that mean? It means you know that to believe in the life of love, to walk in the way of honor, and to serve in the light of truth isn't just the life, the way, and the light of Sigma Nu because it's a cool slogan that Walter Sears decided, maybe I should put down on paper. It's the creed of this fraternity. And just as importantly, it's the backbone of your existence as a human being. As a young man in the 21st century, it is who you are. And could this world use a lot more love, honor, and truth these days? Well, your job is to go out and deliver it. Deliver the love with honor and bounded in truth that this universe is calling out for right now. Which brings me back to trying to figure out what to speak with you about this evening. I told you I was wondering, and that was just the other day. And like all truth seekers in this age, I went to Twitter. Okay, I was just really killing time on Twitter. But it was there that I ran across a tweet from Jamal Adams. He's one of the best players in the National Football League, plays for the Seattle Seahawks. His tweet said nothing but, comfort is the enemy. And I love that. Comfort is the enemy, quote. Now, I'm not going to speak for him, but I interpreted what he was saying to be a reference to oneself. The goal is not to go out and be a jerk and do things to intentionally make other people uncomfortable. What he meant, or at least the way I see it, is that we all have to embrace discomfort in our lives in order to improve, in order to be the people that we want to be, in order to be successful. You've got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. As I look back over my personal and professional life, practically every meaningful moment I've ever had, every experience that's been good, every benefit I've received has come out of being uncomfortable at some point.
In fact, the first gig I had in the television business was a summer internship at CNN Sports, back when CNN did sports in the 1980s. That's long before you guys were born, I know. It came about because I knew I wanted to be involved in sports TV somehow, but at the age of 18, I had no idea what the jobs were in this business, how many of them were there, or how one could even get a job in this business. I was an incredibly shy kid. I mean, like, don't speak unless spoken to kind of quiet. Still though, out of the blue, I picked up the telephone and called and asked for one of the anchors at the time, Fred Hickman. I left him a voicemail. He called me back. Long story short, Fred helped me get an internship simply logging games, which meant watching sporting events, writing down when runs were scored or when an exciting play or a game-ending shot happened, so that the editors would later be able to reduce a 3-hour football game, basketball game, baseball game down to the 45-second highlights you see. It was an unpaid internship, but I would stay after the show was done, hang around with the editors and learn how to edit videotape. And that came in handy because a couple of weeks into the summer, the one kid who was the paid intern left because he needed a real job to earn money for the next school year. Now, in order to get that gig that he was leaving, you had to know how to edit. Well, because I'd stayed around after the show, I'd become proficient enough at it that they allowed me to become the paid intern. The good news is that I was finally getting paid. The not so good news, I should say, was that the pay was $5 for every 3 hours that I worked. Yeah, you heard that right. $5 for every 3 hours. Now, I know it was a long time ago, but I mean, come on, it wasn't the 1800s. Oh, and by the way, the reason this was the paid intern is because the working hours were from 3 a.m. to noon. Still, I took it. But also needing money to help with school, I took a job on a loading dock in the 100-degree heat of a Georgia summer from 3 in the afternoon to midnight. So I'd work at CNN from 3 in the morning till noon, go home, get about 90 minutes sleep, go to the loading dock, work from 3 in the afternoon till midnight, go home, get about 90 minutes sleep, go back to CNN. Luckily, I was 18 years old at the time. Both jobs were Monday through Friday, so I really caught up on my sleep on the weekends, needless to say. But having done that internship allowed me to go back to Iowa, where I was in college, and after reaching out to every local TV station, eventually one guy, John Campbell, who I'm still in touch with to this day, called me back 7 months later and said, "Hey, you're not gonna be famous. I just need someone to carry gear for me at the University of Iowa spring game. You won't get to be on TV. I just need some help." I did it. He asked me if I do the same thing the next weekend for the Iowa State spring game. I did it. What I came to quickly find out, actually, though, was that John was checking me out. He wanted to help me chase my dream, but he wanted to find out how dedicated I was in chasing it. He was the one who encouraged me to eventually put my voice down on tape with some of the highlights we did each night, and then went to the boss and got me hired to be a local reporter when I was 19 years old and just wrapping up my sophomore year in college. So you see, I could have stayed comfortable and never picked up that phone for that initial phone call to CNN. I could have remained in my comfort zone and not stayed late at night to learn how to edit for what at the time was no reason at all. Or it would have been incredibly comfortable to not work all night there and then all day at a loading dock for sure. But by doing all of these things, it gave me the credentials and the courage to call the local stations when I got back to school. And that created the opportunity to start working at a local level in television, doing a job on the air that I never even remotely thought about doing. Over my time, I've worked in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa, Madison, Wisconsin, Jacksonville, Florida, Dallas, and eventually landed in New York City, where at the age of 29, I was the #1 sports guy at the station with the #1 10 o'clock newscast in the #1 television market in America. Over the years, I've had to make some career choices that were incredibly uncomfortable at the time as well. One included walking away from that comfortable job as the guy in New York after almost a decade in it. I was single at the time, making a really good living for a single guy in New York, and enjoying life. I was working for the local Fox station year-round, and I was the Monday through Friday sports anchor, in addition to doing NFL broadcasts for the Fox network on weekends during football season. Working 7 days a week wasn't the issue. It was that I knew that giving nightly scores and highlights were no longer my passion. I'd fallen in love at that time with doing live games as a play-by-play broadcaster. So I made the decision, spurred in large part by the events of 9/11 and living in lower Manhattan, about a mile away from ground zero when it happened, that life is too short, man. It's okay to be uncomfortable again. Go chase what you're passionate about, and that's what I did. So I walked away from a lucrative and comfortable, well-paying job behind the news desk and into the unknown to pursue a play-by-play career. But other than football, I'd never done any other sport. So I had to do minor league baseball, WNBA basketball, small tennis tournaments. Definitely got out of my comfort zone. But it taught me so much about me and my abilities. It also taught me things about the craft of doing live television that I still use to this day. This lasted 2 years because at that point, Fox had an opening to host the pregame show. And I did that uncomfortable call thing again and asked for an audition. Well, as they say, the rest is history. But it was the fact that I had once again done what was uncomfortable and left that cushy job in New York behind the desk. That was the only reason I was even available when the opportunity at the Fox network came. So you see, being uncomfortable has been what's led me to what I consider the greatest life anyone could have. In addition to work, I met my wife because I went to a Halloween party. I absolutely hate Halloween. It's the worst holiday man ever invented, trust me. But rather than blow off a friend who asked me to go and basically be his wingman, I decided to go and hang with him, at least for a little while at the party. I got out of my comfort zone and went. I met my wife that night at that party. We've been together 12 years now. Well, nothing has been more uncomfortable though for any of us than what has gone on over the last year and a half. I decided to make it even more so when, after more than 30 years after I graduated from college, I decided to return to grad school. I could no longer just sit back and watch the world, and particularly this country that I love, struggle with the pandemic and seemingly struggle just as much to get along with one another. So after more than 3 decades as a non-academic, I applied to Northwestern to pursue a master's in public policy and administration and crossed my fingers like a nervous 17-year-old waiting to hear if I had gotten accepted. Well, I got that acceptance email, and now I'm approaching the halfway point of a 2-year program. Look, I hadn't taken any math or any classes involving geometry or algebra since I was in high school. And this quarter, I'm taking graduate level microeconomics as a required course. It's kicking my behind, it's a fight, but so far it's all A's. Over the years, as Regent Hearn said, I've been to 92 countries, all 7 continents. And when you travel, nothing's more uncomfortable than being in a place where you don't speak the language and don't know your way around, especially if you're wandering around late at night because maybe you took a wrong turn somewhere. But that discomfort also led me to some of the greatest experiences I've ever had. I've been invited to strangers' houses in places you can't imagine. I went home with some folks in Russia to drink vodka, in Ireland with people to drink beer, sensing a theme. In Tonga, I was invited to the home of a family who then killed a pig in my honor and roasted it in the ground, sat around eating, swatting flies, but had the best time ever. You know what? If I had just stayed in the comfort of my own home here in the States, or even just sat in my hotel between sightseeing stops and some guidebook, none of it never would have happened. In life, like in travel, you've got to get off the beaten path. You've got to be willing to be adventurous. And in order to do all of that, you absolutely have to be okay being uncomfortable. Comfort is the enemy. Graduating from college in the middle of a pandemic is a hell of an accomplishment, guys. Enjoy that and truly celebrate it and your achievement. But know that from this day forward, the more uncomfortable you're willing to be in your own life, the happier you will be in your own life. And that, my friends, is the ultimate secret to success. I thank you for the time. I'd love to hear some questions, provide some answers, and just maybe have a little talk back with the remaining time we have here. So I guess I'll bring back Regent Hearn.
No, you've got Ben on. Can you hear me?
Ben, yep, I hear you.
All right, thanks, Kurt. Wow, that was awesome. On behalf of the foundation and fraternity, thank you for your inspiring words and for making the celebration of our graduating brothers one we will always remember. Your dedication and commitment to your profession and your pursuit of life is really a great example for all of us.
I appreciate it.
So appreciate that. We do have some questions that we gathered from the brothers before. I can't get my video to start, but the video is going to stay on you, so no worries.
Okay.
So here's the first
So
question.
I'm my nose then.
Oh, here we go. You're going to see me just for a second. All right, here's our first question, Kurt. Why do you believe it's important to stay connected with the fraternity after graduation?
You know, that's a good question. I think that when we all look back, you know, I know that the majority of young men doing this are just graduating from college or maybe a year out. But when you initially pledge a fraternity, it's about, I think for most of us, the social aspect of it and the people that we know that are members and those kinds of things. But after you join and you learn a lot about it, particularly Sigma Nu, you learn about the creed, and Ford, a big part of it for me, I can tell you that, was its anti-hazing background, which was unique, certainly when it started, and even in the 80s. And so that said something about the principle of the organization. The more you're in it, the more in depth you are. The more you find out, as I said earlier, it's really who you are. And it's the foundation of everything for me that you do in life. Just, that creed works in every aspect of my life. But then also, I think it's important for you to give back. And that's a term that I think we use a lot in these days. But giving back is making sure that you continue to honor that fraternity name. You represent Sigma Nu when you're out in the real world, because people will say if you do something well, or if you, do something that's embarrassing, that you were Sigma Nu. It's also important for you to stay connected to the young people that are trying to make this journey. I always go back to remembering when I was at Coe College, and we had alumni that lived in town that would come and play softball with us, maybe have a beer with us, or drinking age was 18 at the time. I'm not encouraging you to do anything illegal. So, but we were able to do that. But part of that was just getting life experience as well. We'd sit while we're having that beer or playing softball and talk about just the struggles of being a 19, 20-year-old kid who's away from his parents, and would need some big brother advice. And I think those things all connect you by being part of the same fraternity and being part of, I don't want to call it a special club, but it is a unique experience that you all share together, that you share not just while you're in college during those 4 years, that you share and continue to share for the rest of your life.
I couldn't agree more, Kurt. All right, next question. What has been your most favorable NFL moment to cover?
Wow.
Or event? I know you've got a lot, but give us one or two highlights. The highlights of the highlights.
Yeah, let me tell you, one of the one that stands out for me, and maybe it's recency bias, but was when, look, I grew up in Atlanta as a Falcons fan. They've never won a championship. They've only made it to one Super Bowl, and they were up 28-3 in the third quarter, and they wound up losing. But the game was on Fox, and wound up going to overtime. So as a company man, I was happy for that. But the moment that stood out for me was watching, our set. It's myself, Howie Long, Terry Bradshaw, Jimmy Johnson, Michael Strahan, and Jake Laser. So Howie's son, Chris Long, was a defensive end with the New England Patriots. He had never won a Super Bowl before. He was getting towards the end of his career. And so when he was there, Howie, when they were coming back, went like in this trance. It's like he was a different person. But I saw him not as a coworker, I saw him as a father in that moment. And that was cool for me to stand there and watch him. And every play, he was freaking out because he knew that his son was part of the greatest comeback ever and was about to win a Super Bowl. And just to watch that relationship. And then when the game was over, the two of them hugged, and Chris had a little baby who was about 6 months old. They brought him down there. And so it was all a personal experience to me, more so than it was a football experience. But that's a moment of joy, because to me, there's nothing better in the world than seeing other people have success, especially your friends. It's like you should pull for them like you pull for yourself. And I genuinely do that, and I get joy out of watching other people have a great experience.
That's great. That's great. Next question. What's the one piece of advice you wish you would have gotten when you graduated from college?
That everything's okay. Stop worrying about everything. We obsess, particularly when we're young, that, oh my God, will I find a job? Where am I going to live? Look, these are important things. Don't get me wrong. I'm not dismissing. I know a lot of students right now graduate with a lot of debt and a lot of things hanging over their head. But in the end, it's going to be okay. You're smart. You've gotten this far. You survived this last year and a half. If that didn't teach you that it's not going to be, that bad, then nothing will. That's, I think, if someone just sat me down and said, hey, dude, relax, just go do your thing. And I think as long as it's three things that I truly believe in. If you work hard, you're passionate, and you enjoy life, everything will work out for you, because the rest of it will just be insignificant. So if someone had sat me down and said, relax, dude, that's the best message I think you can give me.
Great, thanks. Any suggestions for our graduating brothers on how they can use their Sigma Nu experience in a job interview?
Yeah, I think that probably one of the things is you go back, and I go back, and I keep harping on the creed, but I think that that's how you have to live your life, and that's how you have to carry yourself. And I think if you do that, in the job experience, because when people bring you in for an interview, how do I say this without, they want to make sure you're not a jerk. You know, that's really the purpose of a job interview. Your GPA and all, and part of this is the profession I'm in. The first time I got asked my GPA after I graduated was when I applied to grad school 33 years later, okay? So when you go to get a job, they don't care. They want to care about your extracurricular activities because it tells them about you. And I think the Sigma Nu experience, one, is being part of a fraternity, but two, living the life in the right way and presenting yourself in that way with that honor is what job seekers are looking for. And I think that's the best advice you can have is, not just when you read it, live that creed, live it. And then I think most of you are, because you wouldn't be part of the organization if you didn't believe it.
Great. Next question. How would you say your Sigma Nu experience impacted you in your career? I know you touched on a little bit in a little bit in the answers, but any other commentary on that specifically?
Yeah, no, I think that would be it. I guess besides the fact that I truly, genuinely believe that that's the life I try to lead. I mean, none of us are perfect, but it's the life I try to lead. But I tell you, it also, my Sigma Nu experience kind of goes back a little bit as well to what I talked about at the beginning. When you're 18, 19 years old, it starts as a social experience. And those people are lifelong friends of mine. I don't have kids, but they do. So all their kids are my nieces and nephews. They come out and visit in California, they stay at my place. I go to visit them in Iowa or Illinois or Texas. They're spread out all over the country. I mean, these are people that you share a bond with. You can't really replace or explain to anybody. And these are people that you may go, some of them, 10, 15 years without talking to, and all of a sudden you pick up right where you left off because of the shared experiences. And so those are things that I treasure and I have joy in, besides the internal stuff, is just that shared experience and that lifelong bond that I share with so many brothers.
Great. So I know you talked a little bit about Northwestern. I think I'm a Northwestern undergrad and Kellogg grad, so I bleed purple for sure. You talked a little bit about what it's like to be back in school. I'm going to shift the question a little bit and talk about the future. But upon your graduation and receiving your graduate degree, what are your thoughts about utilizing? Yeah, you'll get it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about what could be your next act or a second act or a separate act from what you're currently doing in the sports world as you look at the world we're currently living in?
Yeah, I look at it as an additional act because, knock on wood, I'm able to do, Fox NFL Sunday till the day I choose to retire, which hopefully is another 25, 30 years from now. I'll do it when I'm 80 years old. I'll be more than happy. But I think that one of the things, and I talked about it a little bit before, just watching this last year and everything that's gone on, I think there's so many ways for me, and the way I explain, people always ask, well, why would you go back to school in your 50s after you've been gone for 30 years, especially to get a degree in public policy? And for me, I'm blessed and I'm fortunate that because of the job I have, I cross paths with a lot of people of power. I know senators, representatives, state level, national level, CEOs of companies. And these people, we spent last year, I think a lot of people, tweeting and marching and making their voice heard and all this stuff. But all you're doing at that point is asking someone else to make change. And I think in order to actually help facilitate change at a corporate level or a political level, you need to know what the change makers need as information, what they need to help guide them down those steps. And so I think that that's the next iteration for me, is being able to apply it to a lot of these contacts that I have to help make the world a better place. And it may be a corporate environment, it may be an NGO, non-governmental organization, it may be in politics. I'm not quite sure. I think I'll figure it out as I go along, but there are steps I'm already taking right now, and there's some organizations that hopefully we'll be able to announce pretty soon about some things we're doing. But I think that that's, for me, what it's about, is finding a way to make the world a better place.
Great. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you in your additional act. All right, 2 more questions, a very simple one. It sounds like microeconomics, I was an economics undergrad degree. It sounds like microeconomics might be your least favorite class so far. What's been your least favorite?
Surprisingly, this is I say that it's kicking my tail, but I still got an A average. And it's a fight, but I'm enjoying, it's like a sparring partner. I'm enjoying the battle. It wins some, I win some, but overall I'm ahead on the judges' scorecard. So it surprised me how much I've enjoyed it. It's just those graphs, dude. You got to get those graphs. Give me a word problem, I'm good. Can't deal with the graphs.
No need to remind me. All right, the last question. What do you like most about your job right now? Is it the studio work, the play-by-play, or sideline reporting, or something else?
I think it's the fact that I get to do a little bit of everything. You know, I love being in the studio in part because I love the guys that I work with. We were just together, all 6 of us, this past weekend. We get together in the off season every year. We do kind of a boys trip and go somewhere. You know, last year because of COVID, we weren't able to. So this is kind of a makeup time. We got to hang out with Jimmy Johnson, who didn't travel, you know, because he's older, and so he didn't get on a flight during football season. So it's the first time we've seen him in person since the Super Bowl in Miami a year and a half ago. So, but being with those guys, because we're all genuinely good friends. I mean, that's another one. You talk about our families knowing each other and always. I mean, if I showed you our text chain, HR would probably get involved, but you know, we're constantly in touch with one another. But I also, from a job aspect, I enjoy being in the studio and looking at the league from 30,000 feet, where you know this team wins impacts this team that lost today, and being able to see the big picture. When you do play-by-play, it is literally play-by-play. You have no idea what's happening 30 seconds from now. But you're also in the environment with 65,000 people, and you know a big play happens, and everybody screams, and it goes crazy. And also doing it is more like taking a test. I tell people, you probably prepare for a game and only use 20 to 25% of what you studied that week. And you've got to know what to use and what not to use rather than jamming stuff down everybody's throat just to show you've done your homework. But you're obsessed with who the third team guard is in case an injury happens. And so you're so focused on your 2 teams in that game that you don't see the big picture. And so that's the balance between the two that I enjoy being able to do.
All right, great. Actually, we've got a few other questions coming in from the chat, so we've got a few minutes left. Question, how does your contribution to Sigma Nu as an alumni compare or contrast to when you were an active member?
How does my contribution compare and contrast? Well,
yeah, as an alumni compared to when you were an active member.
I don't know if I'm going to answer the question properly, because I think that, I mean, obviously when you're an active member, it's, you know, it's 24/7, you're on campus, you're involved in everything, you know, whereas this, it's a periodic involvement. I was involved with the chapter at Coe College for a while. And obviously I didn't do a very good job because the chapter got closed down because of lack of pledges. So, yeah, it's obviously more sporadic now. And I think that that's the issue, but I'm not there full time. So not avoiding the question, but I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, okay, no problem. Let's see what else we've got. I know you touched on it. Somebody asked the question, would you seriously consider government service in an elected office fashion? You touched on it. Any more commentary on that?
Yeah, I would, okay, let's say I would seriously consider it, yes. I think that the challenge for me is that I would have to give up hosting Fox Info Sunday if I did. And I, at least at this point in my life, I'm not ready to do that. So not saying that that day won't come, but I also believe state in particular, but state and local politics are so, you can have a bigger impact there. And people really don't think about that. You know, too many people don't think about it. They look at national office, they look at running as a US congressman or being a US senator. And I think if you want to have a day-to-day impact on people's lives and help them with their issues and their problems, you can get a lot more done as a state or local elected official. And so my eye would be, at least again, as we sat here, you know, in 2021, on probably a state office or a local office more so than a national office.
Okay, great. All right, listen, Kurt, it's been an incredible opportunity for all of the Sigma Nu brothers, and we want to thank you again for making it happen. We wish you the very best, both at Fox and whatever your future endeavors are in your additional act. For all of our brothers and guests, please be on the lookout for Kurt's exclusive interview in Sigma Nu's podcast, The Gavel, which will be available soon. Once again, I congratulate and commend our Sigma Nu graduates of 2020 and 2021. We know you will make us proud. Wherever you may be across the continent or the world, I hope you will join me in reciting the creed of Sigma Nu fraternity. To believe in the life of love, to walk in the way of honor, to serve in the light of truth. This is the life, the way, and the light of Sigma Nu. This is the creed of our fraternity. Good night and Godspeed. Thanks, everyone.
Then we'll give a toast to